The first poem I will read is entitled Hillbilly Leviathan. And it's roughly about the Ozarks, which are located northwest of Little Rock, around the Oklahoma and Arkansas border in Missouri. The Ozarks are where defeated assassins, the unholy, and monsters come to retire. Proper soil and crooked moonlight grow back the disemboweled, the decapitated, while we collect arrears in child support for our demigod children. Procession of taillights lying deep down the logging trails. Along the way, there was a gentleman arguing with his soul over his suicide. I, tongue of snakes, cut up, dipped in powdered sugar, scattered to the ants in the deepest corner of Mount Nebo. This insult binds my ghost to the mountains. Typhoon has collected the few precious scales left of me from the undertow. My southern accent muscle burned up from haunting your life, house. Now let daybreak be my head and the year my whole body. An online Southern Christian University ordained my smoker's cough to be a dove. My favorite exorcism, the demon steeped in cornbread philosophy. He does not have enough ass to carry off the genes he advertises as he kneels down to the priest in holy water. Years ago, as a child, I climbed the levee and made a hole in the air. That's where I will rest. The gate is not wide enough. Like my burial site, I am party size. I don't know if y'all heard that, but that's outside my house. There's people trying to like traverse the road there, and it's pretty, we have like 14 inches of snow, so he's like, good luck. So,
that was really kind of a great sound effect for the end of that poem there. I have
to... great. I'll take it. At the end there, my contacts were starting to float. That's why it was no intentional pause whatsoever. It was my contacts I was trying to straighten out. This book kind of goes back and forth between the landscape of the Ozarks and the landscape of Oklahoma. I spent half my life here in Arkansas. My father's family is originally from here. So as a child, when my parents divorced, I spent half my time here and then half my time in Oklahoma. And the Ozarks, you know, they're old mountain chain, but there's just something that resonates from them for me. They have their own vibe to them. So, and that's what that last poem was trying to capture, I guess, and the mythology of those mountains and the lore that I've grew up listening to, hearing. So to counter that, I'm going to read a poem. It's entitled Toward Mount Scott. And Mount Scott is a part of the Wichita Mountains, which and Mount Scott's located just outside of Lawton, Oklahoma. So, Toward Mount Scott. Toward Mount Scott is as sharp as a knife. The bad roads lead to lost roads. The lost roads lead to the same empty spot. People sometimes go to lonely places for power. Eagles sometimes choked. Dragonflies lassoed. Smaller birds follow ghosts to eat off the bugs. A line of barbed wire marks the boundary between this world and the next. And same with Mount Scott, it's the Comanches and Kiowas before pre-reservation period buried their dead up there in the crevices. So it's been somewhat of a sacred spot for us. Definitely a one of the center points to the topography of Comanche culture, Comanche history, a geographical, has a geographical bearings for us.
Is that the Quartz Mountain region?
Somewhat, yeah. It's close near there, yeah.
I love that part of Oklahoma. People don't
Yeah,
think Oklahoma is having mountains, but that's like one of the spots where you can find mountains, but they're different. They're really old and dulled down and
mm-hmm. It looks like a pile of boulders. It's like someone just dropped a pile of boulders there. Yeah, but it's, yeah, Oklahoma's different. It's a unique state. So because you have woods, you know, on the eastern part, woods, part of the Ozarks. As you go further west, you know, the trees get smaller and it gets more flat.
you've driven through that many, many times, I imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah, back and forth. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna read this next poem. Um, it's entitled uh, Pineola, and it was named after one of Lucinda Williams' songs. I don't know if y'all know who she is, but she's like a not a country, not a folk, but she's kind of in between that singer. And I just love her voice. It's like describe it as cutting into cornbread. Her voice, and so one of her songs influenced this poem. So Pineola. Severed finger of a convicted murderer uncurls like a waking pet. Demonic compass points toward the most dangerous direction to get home. Its long yellow fingernail can pick any lock. On the fish hook, the finger resembles a long, fat mealworm. Most times it's lodged in the throats of my enemies. It avoids gold rings. It's bad luck. When wearing this rot relic on a chain, sunlight smells like stale curtains in a worn-out hearse. Rain never hits my clothes. Rooms seem hotter. Radios turn on by themselves, always to the same Lucinda Williams song. Use any mirror as a doorway, I come out into the same sweaty bedroom from a previous life. I forget who is wearing whom. I pierce the fingertip to draw up a wheel. I dip it in water. I point it toward the sun. I flick it to make it rain. Hanging on the wall, I sleep under this bird, booger picker, dream catcher, missing piece of an inverted cross, rotting pencil. It sleeps over me like an accusative god. Around midnight, I wake up. The finger is typing in the next room. What is it composing at this time of night? Letters to a parole board? Love letters to the rest of the hand? Midnight sermons? Ransom notes pertaining to me? Or memoirs about life hanging from my neck? So, most of my writings take, I guess, a little gothic turn, which I like. I enjoy. Growing up, I read old issues of Weird Tales and also Mad Magazine, so a little bit of that humor. And besides reading like the classics like Moby Dick, that's what I was stuck my head into. So one of my favorite poets I do like to read is Charles Simic. I think he's a wonderful poet, and there was this one poem that resonated with me, and I took the liberty to basically copy that, but from an indigenous perspective. This poem is entitled Well, there's no title. I'll just go into it. This is after Charles Simic. It's been 145 years. I'm still surrendering to Fort Sill. The Quijada went one way, the Kiowa another, the Cheyenne even another way. We're all cutting off fingertips, leaving trails of direction. The moon is the body and the funeral. Thistle is tall enough to be silence. We've all been chased to this genocidal beauty once or twice, surrendering at a fast food table with free Wi-Fi. The stench of the run on our beaded kicks. We're unable to tell the difference between the glow of smart maps and campfires of all who are closing in, with ATM cards and 4G in hand. Even the dead land surveyor from Subiaco is right. There is no sanctuary in the subdivisions we edge closer to with our bowstrings cut.
I like that one.
Yeah, I forgot the title of that collection of Charles Simic, but there's a poem that begins as the speaker's like a Napoleonic soldier, and he's marching out still to the to this day. So I thought that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's great imagery. I love the imagery and just the concise, like your words that you choose so concisely to create these images, so memorable.
That's with this collection. That's one thing I was trying to do with this, as with each of these poems, is try to compact it as much as I can each line, and with precise, but to paint this huge canvas. And it was hard to do sometimes. It was, but yeah. This next poem I'm going to read, it's entitled Greasy Voice. And Greasy Voice, I did a lot of genealogy research on my Arapaho side. We knew very little, and we got copies of some of the enrollment, some of the rolls from some of the Indian schools. And there was a Greasy Voice was one of these names that come across, and it stuck with me. And so I was like, well, I'm going to write a poem and use that as a title. Here we go. I smell like the roads cutting through the peanut fields. My dance steps sound like the emptiness of barns. The janitor of hell sweeps up the coffee nails and bouquets of dead horseflies after me. I am a dazed underworld hero, fleshed and rubbed down with my own tongue and brains. The grease of me bubbling like an enchanted lake. I don't even have ashes of dead saints to rub into my eyes. Mud clown face with laughter and grease spraying out, following the hairy tail of a balding star. I carry the power lines of hell around my neck, and my only wing hangs on an empty wall.
Love it.
Thank you.
I have to say, I've read your first book, Vilroy and the Medici Mafia, from Weston Press, from my work back in those days. I'm sure Elise remembers that debut book. It was in the Weston Press news series, Sy's first book. And the late John Crawford was so impressed with his work. And he was like, hey, I know this young guy from Oklahoma, and he's got this great book about the res in Oklahoma, and he's Arapaho, and it's just so edgy, and it's not like anything you've ever read before, and especially it's coming out of Native American poetry. And so we loved that book. And I have to say, it sounds, at least, I haven't read all of this one yet. It sounds vastly different than this new collection, which just has this kind of, Vilroy was dark too, but this sounds like it has some kind of Gothic elements that you've mentioned.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like where you're coming from, like maybe what the difference was when you were writing them, or what you wanted to explore in this book compared to what you did in the first.
I wanted to step away from that direction. My first book that was exploring or introducing contemporary Comanche culture, and what does that mean? What does that look like today? And that was, and I was trying to take away. I was trying to not take away, but add to, the Powell imageries of feathers, buffalo, so on and so on. This one wanted to, like I said, I've always had a fascination with occult literature and ghost stories, and so I want to explore that side, see if I could take that and run with it, but also have some type of indigenous, be rooted into my indigenous background as well, but not as much, not relying on that as much. And so so it came out a lot darker, a lot it's like a book. It's a lot darker, and it's some of the imagery is not your typical, I guess, what you would find in indigenous literature at this moment, so yeah.
Maybe not in poetry, but I think there are plenty of like native genre writers. Do you read any fiction, like horror fiction?
A little bit. I definitely want to get into that. That's like an explosion going on with fiction, vice fiction, short stories, definitely. But yeah.
Cool. All right. What else you got? Elise has her dog joining her.
So. Yeah, I know. He's beautiful. This one I'll read. It was there's a line from this poem that was it got some recognition in the New York Times in 2018, and I was pretty thrilled about it. And it was one of the lines in here. I'll read the poem and I'll discuss that. It's entitled Hinterlands. My ancestors were not diligent, so they lived close. They lived beside the fort. That's neither on the maps of heaven nor of hell. In these lands, there is no difference between a star and thrown car keys. Chicken nuggets hatch from the eggs of eagles. I grow dirty while bathing in bottled water. My bed comforter is a wet parking lot I wrap myself up in. If I eat in the morning, there's nothing left in the evening. My dish of grass and cigarette butts is topped with expired coupons. Stir all I like, I never swallow it down. All the while, my rabbit foot runs about from Las Cruces to West Memphis, searching for flawless luck. The more one cries, the more one prospers. Oh, ancestral demon, may my lamentations become verbal sorcery. So there was I have a column in the New York Times, and it's one sentences, and I forgot the guy's name. I think his name's Scott Andrews. No, Scott Anderson. Scott Andrews is the the scholar. Anyway, he read Hyde Erdrich's anthology, the one that came out in 2018. The new, I forgot the name of the anthology. Anyway, my poem's in there, and he liked the line, "Chicken nuggets hatch from the eggs of eagles," and that was, I guess, at the time, that encapsulated what was going on in America at the time with the Trump administration and what we have been experiencing during that time. And so
I love the line about stars and thrown car keys too. It's just like
yeah, it's, growing up, growing up here, when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm ready to get the hell out of here, and uh, go on my own way. And I would always, at night, like always get in the car and just drive, friends and I, and dream about, where we're going to do, when we get out of here. And so I guess that line comes from that, stems from that. Let's see. This one I'll read. I guess this is for my father. He had passed away back in 2019. And we had a strange relationship. It wasn't until the end until we were able to mend things together. But I guess this is a response to it. It's titled Beget. Out in the dark, my father's house is telling itself stories about my father going back to his birthplace, how his skull was the color of a meteor. My father's birthplace gives fellowships to lightning and defense contracts to tornadoes. When there is no one to pursue, the sunlight gets fat on apples and wedding toasts. And there are the story about my father's ex-wives, a mountain and a river. When he divorced them, the mountain slid onto a small farming community. The drowned were left huddled in the corner when the river flowed in reverse to follow my father. When my father finally left his house, the trees gutted a storm. Dove spilled out from its breastbone. I guess another thing, a stream of is, I guess, death too, and because I had a lot of family members pass away within the last 5 years, and it's been a topic on my mind for some time now. I guess the process of it, and the typical, people left me behind, that void. So, and I just wanted to, I guess, address that and give it some type of close, some type of voice, some type of features for me to help process. So, this next one, do what?
It's a wonderful poem. That was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry to hear about your father, though.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let's see. This next poem, it's entitled Native Child Star. In that movie about the plains, I was an extra. That's me there, I told the grandkids, in a scene of tall grass squeezed between sunlight and blood. Hours upon hours in this historical makeup. Actors on their war ponies tripping over fish line. Special lighting made actresses appear inside out. Womanhood spread out like a battlefield map. Shocked, I couldn't tell the difference between prop babies and cannonballs. Take after take after take, they rewound the bullets. We ran, with sabers grazing our hair until the cavalry horses stood dazed in the wide mouth of night. The village was long gone, but the director gestured to his cameramen to keep rolling. So, I guess that addresses, well, that poem I've written that around the anniversary of the Sand Creek Massacre, and that took place along Sand Creek, and how do you still deal with that, especially with digital media, because there's been documentaries about it, and there's been movies that have addressed that incident in history, but I guess for me to respond to that's where that poem comes from. And you know, in our historical memory, I guess we have to relive it to retell it so people can, understand, I guess, that our point of view and what that means to us. So anyway, any questions? Anything so far? Any
I really like that last poem because I think being in New Mexico, especially with the movie industry being here, past and present, there's just such a long history of that kind of iconography, but so objectified and, romanticized and just ridiculous and stereotypical and all the things, with the mascots, the sports mascots, all those things that we see just continue to be part of popular culture, right? That shouldn't be.
You're
but
right.
When they're falling, when tripping over that wire, I guess, like you mentioned.
Yeah. That stuck with me when because I saw a documentary on old westerns and like filming out in Arizona, New Mexico, and that was one of the tricks they would use, which I thought, wow, that's still dangerous. I mean, using wire, trip over a horse, and damn it, hurt the horse, and then the extra too is like, wow, how far will you go for authentic authentic scene or whatever action. So
inauthentic though.
Yeah, very too. Yeah. On the same token, very, very inauthentic. Yeah. This next one I'm gonna read. I've had this for a while, and I thought it had a good place in this book. It's entitled Six Fingers. They say the snake is the severed tail of a vast and dangerous creature of filth and fog. I can relate to that. I am the cut off, the stump. My life at best is a severed hand with 6 fingers, a skinny cardinal for a wedding ring. My blood trail disappears up into the trees, into the sky, into the next world. The starry hand of dawn, all 6 fingers pointing in 6 different directions, fingering goodbye. Undecided, I sat here long enough to become an altar where the abandoned monsters come to pray. My temple of 100 wildernesses, shining like the edges of a viper's eye. And the offerings, dead spiders, hummingbirds, and crispy sun-soaked leaves raked out of cemetery lawns. So,
where did that image come from, Sy?
Which one?
Of the 6 fingers.
My mom, she had a friend who she claimed to have and I, to this day, it's probably a callus from, writing or whatever, but it's pretty prevalent on her hand and on her right hand. And it was right on the pinky area. And she said, my family, there was a long history of 6 fingers, like some of my family has 6. And I knew, now, she was young, but that like slowly stuck with me. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Imagine 6 fingers. And I thought that was unique,
Absolutely. And, I wondered if it had any background or if it was a dream or something.
I don't know. But that stuck with me. And the funny thing about it, what made it even more mystique is my mom had lost contact with that friend of hers, and that friend would come and stay with my mom, but she would hitchhike. And she lived in Iowa and Indiana, and those were mostly where she would go to. And my mom had lost contact with her, and it always, intrigued me. Where is she? And this woman with 6 fingers. So, but it's one of those childhood things, I guess. And I guess that's another thing from this book is not childhood memories, but stuff that intrigued me back then, which I've long forgot about. It comes back.
Those kind of weird scenes and
It's come back to me. Like working its way to the, from the subconscious to the consciousness, I guess. I'm sure there's a Jungian word for that, or Freudian, or whatever. But let's see. All right. This one poem, we were talking about traveling through Oklahoma, and this one poem is kind of like that. Like I said, as you travel through Oklahoma, there's many different types of Oklahomas you go through. And for me, that's as I'm going to Lawton, Oklahoma, which is in the southwestern part of Oklahoma, and coming especially from Arkansas, you go through a lot of different Oklahomas. So this poem is entitled Church for the Disliked. On the turnpike, the smell of a heaven made out of old barnwood from Okmulgee. Handles and rungs cut from a fat farmer's leather belt. In the eastern counties, coffins raced uphill rolling on hay bales and billiard balls. Caron paid for everyone at the I-44 toll booth. On the North Canadian, comforts of a widower's loneliness floated on pontoons. Time balanced on a fish egg. In the city, violins violated jackhammers. At the refuge, night is the church for the disliked. I go to baptize the plants, horns, and rain. I have passed through many different Oklahoma statehoods. Here's talking about crazy childhood dreams and stuff like that. This next poem, it's entitled Before We're Eaten. And I'll just read it. We'll get into it. Before we're eaten, the raccoon witch cannibal monk sings to us, showing rows upon rows of teeth. The songs are always about the Arapaho girl whose parents' names are White Crazy and Grief, and how she offers up her last finger as a sacrifice. Then the cannibal owl takes a bow, wearing his own gigantic scrotum as a robe. At the center of the center of the center of things, he keeps us. His stomach is a small bedroom with an old mattress and wooden floor lined with old newspapers and coffee cans full of kerosene for the scorpions that come out to mock.